Hello everybody, this is Danny from Deep South Homestead. Guys, it's been a challenge for most of the country this past week. And I want to do a video about lessons we've learned from the winter freeze. I've had some time to do some thinking. I've had to take care of several things here on my own homestead. It's brought back a lot of memories. There's been a lot of things just run through my head. I remembered back to when I was a real little child. I grew up very poor. If any of y'all who know my story, you went back and looked at the videos where I told my story. I grew up very poor. My father was a putwooder, and we lived in an old house that my grandfather built. It was a sturdy old house, but it was like all the old homes were. You could see through the floor, and knot holes would fall out, and we had newspapers on the walls to keep the air from coming through the walls and stuff like that. And, when I was a kid, very young age, in the early 60s, I remember a snowstorm here in South Mississippi that was over a foot deep. And I've never seen that again. So I know that at least once it was colder and worse than it is now here. And I thought back to the way we lived then. The old house had no insulation, anything like that in it. Any of y'all is familiar with the old homes built back in the 40s and 50s. They just they didn't have all that stuff in them. Matter of fact, the studs went all the way through to the sill under the bottom of the house. They didn't even sit on top of the subfloor, and that way, in the South here, it was designed where air could come up through the inside of the walls, and to keep the walls, get some ventilation in the house, because back then everybody believed in ventilation, in the house. They didn't do all these energy-efficient, airtight homes, and I thought about all that stuff, and I began to think on it, what we did, how we survived, things to that nature. The first thing I think that I've learned from the freeze of this year is never be all electric. Those who are all electric, when the power goes out, they're the ones who suffer. And I can't say much here where I'm at. The home that I'm in here now, I'm in a room, and I'm actually wearing a hoodie in this room right here in my own home, because this room is about 50 degrees right now. And we have the doors closed. Now my home is an all-electric home. When I built this house, I didn't think about all that. My wife that passed away, and when we built this house, my construction company was blowing and going. I was building these $1 million homes and stuff to this nature. I didn't think anything about nothing like this. Even though I was homesteading, I was not thinking about, what we're facing today. Even though God had forewarned me in the 80s about it, it just wasn't on my mind. So, the house had a fireplace in it, because it went with the decor of the house, but the fireplace would never heat the whole house because it's just too large. And it wasn't laid out for a fireplace to heat it. It had a central heating unit and stuff like that. And Wanda, when my wife passed away, my heating unit had quit working. Shortly after Wanda and I got married, it quit working. We had it worked on several times, and it just never would. They never could get it right. And I didn't want to, at that time, I just didn't have the finances to put a new unit in, because it was just so expensive. And Wanda and I bought a wood heater and took the French doors out and closed that wall in, and we put a wood heater in the corner back over here. And it wasn't an efficient wood heater, it was just an old cast iron one we bought to go in there. And we used that thing for several years instead, because we didn't have any other heat in the house. And later on, we realized that really just wasn't efficient. So we bit the bullet, and we went ahead and got a nice wood stove that would heat 3,000 square feet, and the pipe and everything to go with it. We took the fireplace out, took the other wood heater out, moved it to the shop, sold one of the subscribers a heater that was in the shop, and we put this new wood stove in where the fireplace was. I rebuilt all the wall there, and we really done that thing. And that wood stove has been my lifesaver. Even though I've had the unit replaced since then, we have heat. With all I'm hearing about the electric bills and everything, and how high they're probably going to go, they're going to they could double, triple, quadruple, I mean go way up yonder. That's just not in my budget for that. So Wanda and I have kept the wood stove going, and that has been our saving grace here throughout this. So lesson 1 is never be all electric, because that is, that's probably a big mistake I made. If I was to ever build another house, it would definitely be built different than this one is. That's for sure. I know too much about things now. It's funny when you're younger, you don't think a lot about these things, but the older you get, you think a lot about them. Second thing, right here, have an ample food supply. I cannot stress enough that in the coming years about having an ample food supply. Now that's one thing I guess Wanda and I really don't worry about is our food, because we are diligent about growing our own food. As a matter of fact, we don't buy anything from a grocery store hardly anymore at all. If we go to a grocery store now, I mean, it's to Wanda sometimes wants a loaf of bread or something to this nature, and we might stop by and get her a loaf of bread or something like that. But as far as that kind of stuff goes, we just about, if we need to go to Walmart and pick up like we bought 2 grapevines the other day, I mean, something to that nature. But as far as buying food, we just don't do it. Now we may, if we get low on butter, we may go buy, 5 to 10 pounds of butter or something and come home and put it up. But it's very rare that we do these kind of things, because we raise predominantly all that we eat. And what we try to stay out of the grocery store. Let me put it that way. We will order a couple of things online, like maybe if we run low of sugar, we'll order sugar online, or I have a friend that runs a meat packing place. If we run low on salt, we'll get salt from her. We can get it in 50-pound bags. But having an ample food supply is a must to be able to make it. I've watched people throughout the whole country freezing cold, standing in food lines because they're looking for something to eat. And this should not be. We should have more wisdom than this. Our forefathers stored up. The Bible speaks in Ecclesiastes and Proverbs. It talks about storing up, and it talks about how the ant, she has no leader, but yet she gathers and she stores for the winter months. The grasshopper talks about how he literally eats up and devours everything and doesn't think anything about it. And he says, "Why sleepest thou, O sluggard?" In other words, why do you sit around and do nothing? You should be preserving. You should be storing up. You should be stocking up for the winter months. God expects us to do that. And that's just one of the things that, that Wanda and I do here. Number 3, I've seen this. Well, I've seen a lot of this. We need to have a way to purify water. That right there, you can't live without water. You've got to have it. And I've sit and watched people, there's no power. They talk about, we have no water, we have no water. Well, if you have a water purification system, like we use the Alexa Pure, and we have a link in the description down below for Alexa Pures. You know, from My Patriot Supply, this thing's been a lifesaver for us. So over at our cabin, we purify our water over there at the cabin that we drink, and we have it, and we have several filters bought up from the company in the event that something should happen. And we see people in the places that are frozen over and all this stuff talking about they don't have any water. Well, if you had a water purification system, basically all you got to do is go out the door and shovel up snow and ice and bring it in, melt it, let it melt, and run it through the Alexa Pure, and you've got drinkable water. At least you have some water. I mean, there's ways to make it through this, and you know, to have a way to purify water it's a must. Another thing, I guess this would be number 4, would be alternative power sources. Wanda and I, as we get older, this is one of the things that we really are beginning to focus a lot on, is alternative power sources. Because, I mean, we don't watch the news, but even on YouTube, we're always hearing about, you know, possible grid down situations, blackouts, brownouts, these types of things, you know, attacks from other countries, EMPs, you know, another Carrington event from a solar flare, these type of things. And I told Wanda, I said, we've got to be prepared if something like this happens. If they cut our power off, we've got to be able to, you know, to survive. And so over the time, we've bought and we've partnered with different companies. One being, now we've bought the Rockpal generators. We've bought gas generators, things like this. We own a Champion one. We've got the gas generator. We're actually looking into a Generac for the cabin as an alternative, you know, power source over there. We have the Blue Eddy power stations that are solar charged or electric charged, either one. They will run to charge our cell phone, to charge our laptops. If we all of a sudden the power's gone and we need the internet, we can plug one of them up to our router, and it kicks the internet right back on. We're able to run that to charge our flashlights, because we have rechargeable flashlights that charge through USB cords. These the Blue Eddies, we have them in a link down below where where you can purchase them if you're interested in one of them. We have, I think we've got like 5 of them now. We've got 300 watt ones, 500 watt ones, 150 watt ones, 1500 watt ones, 90 watt ones. We just began to store them up so that we have one for all things. If we're going to just be sitting there, we need to read or need a light to be able to see, we just get the little 99 watt one and plug a light into it, and it'll run all night, you know what I mean, before it runs down. And things to this nature, we need alternative power sources. We're involved right now in putting solar in over at the cabin. We've got several fold-out 100-watt solar panels that we've gotten that carries like a suitcase that we can carry them with us to charge different things if we need to. These are things that we have to think about is having an alternative power source. And because we're homesteaders, and that's what they call us. I mean, I don't know. I guess you call us homesteaders. I mean, we raise animals and we live off of our land here. We're not like most people. We don't go to a daily job everywhere. I'm retired. Wanda's retired, and we try to do our best to keep our homestead going through it. And I guess number 5 would be to make sure that you have ample feed and hay for your animals. And that's a big issue here in the South where we live at. We can't just go buy up a lot of feed and store it up. I tried that one time and it all molded. I mean, the humidity here stays around I don't know, anywhere between 80 and 100% most of the time. Occasionally it will drop down to in the 50s, but usually it's 80 and above, and it's just almost impossible for us to be able to store feed. As a matter of fact, this past week I talked to a guy at the feed store asking him, did he have a suggestion about a way to store up feed for long term. I told him, I said, if you do, I'll buy a lot of feed from you to store up because of what I see coming. And he looked at me and he said, Danny, my grain bins out there, he said, we have to empty them at least once a month because if we don't, the feed will mold in them. And I understand what he's talking about. So it makes it very difficult on us as far as storing up feed long term. Now, hay, yes. Matter of fact, Wanda and I spent one day this week, all day, making trips back and forth to a place to purchase rolls of hay because we couldn't find any anywhere else. It's not hay that I wanted because I didn't have a choice. My cows were running out of hay, and this hay has had Grazon sprayed on it, and I have no alternatives. Here where we live, everybody uses Grazon. I have only found one farmer who doesn't spray his fields, and I bought everything he owned, and we've already went through it. So there's drawbacks with it. Everywhere you go, sometimes you have to just compromise. I mean, there's nothing else you can do. My fields are probably toxic now because I'll probably never be able to grow a garden in any of my fields because of it. But you've got to have feed and hay, ample feed and hay for your animals. Number 6 would be those who take medication. You would need extra medication set aside in case events like this take place. It's a pretty big deal. Those people, Wanda and I don't take any medicine, but for those who do, it's a wise decision to talk to your doctors and to try to get them, if your insurance programs will let you, if you're on Medicare or Medicaid or whatever, if you can get extra prescriptions, especially during the winter times of the year or during a hurricane season, if you live in that zone, so that you'll always have extra medication on hand so that you can make it through a crisis. I guess number 7 would be to have extra clothes and blankets. The older one that I get, we realize that the cold hurts us more and more each year, and we realize that we have to have certain clothes. And this goes back. I've been watching a lot of videos and documentaries and stuff like this on life in the 1700s, life in the 1800s. What was it like to live during that time? What was it like to live in the old houses and stuff? How did they dress? What did they do during these times? And what I've learned from these periods of time is that people dress completely different than we do today. They didn't run around in the wintertime all skimpily dressed. And I talked about this on a video the other day. They actually, the men folk, they wore long, I call them a bodysuit long john. In other words, they reached all the way, your legs and your whole body was in the whole thing. And, if you had to go to the restroom, you had to flap you undone, stuff of that nature. The women wore heavy garments, big, like nightgown type things over them. And they slept in these things. Everybody wore a hat at night on their head, a little, you heard the Christmas story, mom her kerchief and I in my cap. At night, people wore them on top of their head because the heat comes out the top of your head, and if you don't have something on your head, then you get cold at night in a cold house. I wear one at night a lot of times here because it gets cold in my house. And so I've learned things from the past like that. People had warmers that they put their feet on to keep their feet warm. They had bed warmers. Now they had the kind that you had a long stick with a brass thing on the end of it, and you put coals in it and close it up, and you put it under the sheets of the bed to warm the bed. Well, Wanda and I, we have something a little different. We have these right here. These are we have a his and hers. These are for those of you who don't know what they are, they're called hot water bottles. You know, mine's blue, hers is pink, and they have a sweater over them. And you can fill these things up with warm water. You can either heat it on the wood stove and pour the water in the top of it and seal it off. Or the sweater helps to hold the heat in. And you can slide this up between between the sheets of your bed, and you can warm the bed up, and you can actually sleep up against it, and that thing will stay warm. Lord, this thing will stay warm half a night or longer. You know, if you've got enough quilts on you, then hey, you've stayed warm. And we'll have these in the link down below if you're interested in them. If you've got a hot water bottle and you like to knit or something like that, or got an old sweater, you can cut part of the old sweater off and sew it up and just put it around it. That sweater will help that hot water bottle maintain its heat and stay warm a whole lot longer. If you've got a small child and it's cold at night, you can take one of these hot water bottles and put down beside that child and keep it warm. Or, you know, got baby animals that need to be kept warm. Little chickens, little baby chicks and stuff like this. You can put one of these in a box with them, and they'll get over and huddle all against it and stay just as warm as they can be. I mean, guys, these things are limitless as to the use of them. Now, and y'all know what the real use of them is, but that ain't what we're using them for. But, you know, extra clothes, extra blankets and stuff like this is a must. I mean, our forefathers knew this kind of stuff. That's why they had quilts and they did quiltings and stuff to this nature, because the old houses were drafty. You know, they weren't insulated and tight like our homes are. The homes, on the video I done here a while back on Porch Time, I believe it was, I talked about how those houses were built. They were built different than our homes today are. But that's you know, that's another thing. Another thing you might want to think about if you're on a homestead trying to survive is having extra fuel. Now here we try to keep, I don't keep a lot of fuel, you know, I'll be honest, but we keep enough for the tractor and for the Ranger that we have, and for our vehicles and stuff of this nature, our lawnmowers, we keep a little extra fuel for stuff like that. It's not a lot, but it's enough to get us by. I've seen people during this ice storm trying to get somewhere to get fuel, and there's no fuel at the stations because the stations don't have any electricity and they can't pump fuel, and people are panicking because they can't get to work, they can't do this, they can't do that. You know, they don't have it, and you gotta, I'm sorry, but I can't feel for people who don't prepare. You know, I'm not, it's not that I'm cold. It's just that I come from a family that was always tried to be prepared, and I just, for me to see someone who's not prepared, I can't. I'm asking the question, what's wrong with you? You know, that's my mentality, because that's everybody used to was prepared. It's only in the recent years that people have gotten relaxed and they're not prepared anymore. So we have to realize that being prepared is one of the big issues to be able to survive anything like these winter storms. And I guess I'm trying to sit here and trying to think last but least, I think this would be number 9, would be, guys, just ways to grow your food. We're going into some bad times, not only with the weather in the upcoming years, because man is tampering with everything. Not only that, our government, you know, it's falling apart. Everything, there's such a disruption in the food supply now. This cold that just hit this part of the country, as long as it lasted, it's going to wipe out. I'm going to tell you now, I already know it. It's going to wipe out probably, I'm going to just go ahead and just take a wild shot in the dark. It is going to probably wipe out probably 30% of our food supply. You know, anywhere between, I'm going to say anywhere between 25 and 30% of our food supply. This cold is going to have wiped it out. And that's a real scary thought. Because there's so many people that just go to the grocery store. Wanda and I, when we go to town occasionally, we'll look at the grocery stores when we drive by, and the parking lots are full. And I told her, I said, does anybody grow their food anymore? I mean, does everybody go to a grocery store? It blows my mind. I told her, I said, I don't get it. Most people have a yard. They have back porches and stuff. And Wanda, you know, Wanda has these GreenStalks out here. Bless her heart, that girl raises so much food in them things. I mean, sometimes I told her, I said, maybe we should just invest in probably 10, 15, or 20 of them and just put them in one of them high tunnels out there and grow our food in them things because, hey, they produce so much food. And it's very simple. Someone in town says they can't grow anything. I can't accept that. If you've got a front porch, a back porch, or anything, a balcony, anything to this nature, you can put a GreenStalk on it. You can grow some food. It can be done. I mean, we prove it here. It can be done. And we have lots of you guys, who subscribers, who send us messages. Guys, and y'all tell us about how y'all are growing stuff with your GreenStalks and how wonderful they are. It can be done, and y'all are proving it. So, guys, I mean, Wanda and I, in my house here, we've been sleeping in front of a wood heater over a week now. That mattress that we got here a while back, we did a video on, we have it laid in the floor in there, right in front of that wood heater. This has been the longest that I've had to keep this wood heater going ever. This will be by the time this video comes out, it will be day 8. That wood heater has not stopped burning wood in 8 days because of the temperature here. And we have all the doors closed off except for the kitchen, the bathroom, and the living room. Everything else in this house is closed off and it just gets cold. That's it. That is what we try to keep warm in there. We keep it around 70 to, sometimes you're in the middle of the day with the fire going, it'll get up to 74. But at night, we try to keep it at 70. It has got down to 68, but we try to keep it around 70. But guys, that's how we're surviving. We're actually sleeping in the living room, on the floor, on a mattress that we got. And that thing, let me tell you, I never know when Wanda moves with that mattress. She never knows when I move on it. That thing, you can almost sit a glass in the middle of it and jump up and down on it and it don't move the glass. I mean, it's just that stable. And the cold from the floor is not radiating up through it. Matter of fact, I don't even sleep under the cover most nights. When we got that mattress, it was in a box, and boy, it just blew my mind. I'm like, there's a mattress in that box? But hey, when she took it out and showed it to me, I was like, well, I can't argue with that, you know. But guys, this video, I need to stop. I just want to talk to you just briefly here about lessons that we've learned from the winter storm that we've had, and a little wisdom that we've learned from it. And we're going to be trying to make some changes in the future here at Deep South Homestead. There's lots of things that we've got to do here. We realize that we didn't do very well at, and we're going to be making some changes. So, guys, I hope the video has been a little bit educational and maybe it's helped some of you out. I know it certainly has taught us a few things, and we've learned some things. So, thank you guys from Deep South Homestead.